Well, hello, everybody. This is Reverend Jermaine Alberty. I am Executive Director of Pathways to Promise, and I'm so glad that you've joined us for this special edition of our Engage, Learn, and Network Leadership Forum. We have with us Lyle Griner, who is with Peer-to-Peer Ministries, and he's going to tell you about himself, because I always love when I'm allowed to just give my little brief intro versus somebody reading paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. And Lyle has done such great work. I could read paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, but I would love for him to give you all a synopsis of the work that he's done. We're having this special edition because we intend to partner with Peer-to-Peer Ministry and offer a workshop in conjunction with Pathways to Promise, where we hope that you would, by way of watching this and being part of this special webinar, say, sign me up. So when we get done with the presentation, we're going to be sending out a link to everybody who may be interested in being part of that workshop. And then Lyle and I'll get a date out for you to save. With that being said, if you all would mute your microphones, if you're not speaking, that would be wonderful. And Lyle, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. So I'm going to I'll just warn people as they're kind of in there. I love it if your screens can be on, and I get to be a little participatory sometimes. So if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But I'd love to have you on when you can there. So good. Well, like you said, I'm Lyle Griner. I'm the National Director for what's called Peer Ministry Leadership. And I get to talk about some of my passions and what we're doing, and share some of that. We'll leave some space for some questions at the end, but feel free if something comes up and you just gotta ask right away. Go for it, right? So let's see. There's always a couple rules that we work with. If anybody says something you really like, everybody goes whoop whoop. Okay, everybody, let's practice. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whoop, whoop. Okay, there we go. All right. If it's kind of like, I'm not sure what you're saying or what that means, then it's kind of like, hey, what is that? Okay, a little practice time. There we go. All right, good for that. And if I am getting a little long and winded and going off on tangents, it's like, come on, Lyle, let's just move along. So yeah, you're allowed. So there we go. We got it. We got our rules down. I have been working with youth, can you tell, for a lot of years, and I've loved it. I've done my whole career working with youth ministry and fell in love with this peer ministry piece along the way, and I've had the opportunity to direct that. Let me jump over. I'm going to do a couple screen shares from time to time just to get things rolling and introduced a little bit. Let's see there. We can see that. I didn't begin it. This lady right here, Barbara Varenhorst, and I have to tell you her story. She was a school counselor, Palo Alto, California. And as a school counselor, she would always ask her students, like, where do you go to when there's something going on in your life, or you notice, something going on in one of your friends' lives? Her observation, and as she would tell her story, she said, they never ever said, well, you, Barbara, right? She said they almost always talked about a friend being one of the first people that they confided in and talked to. So her premise is, well, why am I not giving my students some skills in just how to help and how to care for their friends? What she called it peer counseling. She said later on, I wish I wouldn't use the counseling word, but it became a statewide initiative in California and took off across the country in schools with peer helpers, peer mediation, all kinds of different programs that kind of grew out of that. Churches started to come to Barbara and asking them to work with them. Thus, she did that, and she started to create what she called peer ministry, and she kind of adapted what she had been doing in schools and started to work with churches. And myself, Minneapolis youth ministry guy, people would bring Barbara to town. I'm obviously biased, but I would go to her stuff when she was here, and I just fell in love with where it was taking the youth that I was working with, right? and we started to teach our youth some of the skills. One of the things I started to learn was that my youth were almost like my partners in ministry, you know, and they started to take on these skills, and even the youth I work with now, I get to volunteer now, right? And so last night I was out with a bunch of high school kids at our church and working with them. But I tell our students all the time, I say, you guys do far more youth ministry than myself or any of our youth ministry people or pastors. And what I mean by that is that you know far more youth, right? And you know the joys, but you also know the stresses. And you really are the front lines people that listen and that learn to care for them. So our job is to help you help your friends, help others, right? And so the skills that we give are, what you'd imagine, just being able to listen, being able to care, being able to help people as they're going through stresses and changes and choices in life. And I say without telling people what they should do, giving them some systems to doing that, to welcome and to be in the midst of that. I think what I'm going to do is play a little bit, and then I'll talk a little bit more. All right. And again, if you got cameras, that'd be great. You have chances are you've seen these books before. This one's a Bible. It's a good book. I didn't read the whole thing. I saw the movie once. Just kidding. All right. If you've hung around the church, okay, if you've hung around the church a bit, you know this story. In fact, if you've hung around Pathways for Promise, you know this story. And it goes something like this. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus, and he said, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And he said to him, well, what's written in the law? And he said, you're supposed to love your Lord your God with all your, at least mouth it, heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself, right? And you know the story. And of course the lawyer asks, well, who's my neighbor? Who's my neighbor? And here's where my imagination gets going a little bit. I would love to think that Jesus didn't spend a lot of time like I do on laptops at coffee houses writing. I would love. Wouldn't it be cool if these stories just came to him on the spot? and he goes up to Jim. Jim, you're on your way to Jericho. Okay, you're on the road and you're traveling and out jumps Barbara. Okay, and out jumps Adrian, and out jumps Faye. You guys are right there. You are our thief, our robber, and our thug. Now give me some thief, robber, thug expressions on your face. Lean into that camera. Give us some mean, sinister. Give us, and you beat on the guy. Okay, fists ready. Everybody beat on Jim for a minute. Jim, you got to take the blows here a little bit, and you get punched and taken. They take your money, Jim. They take your money. So you the thief, the robber, and the thug, they grab the money, right? And then it says, if we stick with the scripture, Jim, it says they stole your clothes, but if it's okay with everybody, we won't do that part today. No, Jim, no. and the thief, the robber, and the thug, they run off, right? And you know the story. You know the story. Linda comes by. Linda getting her, cheers, Linda. And Yeah, right. Get more. I got a little coffee yet. And Linda comes by, and she's our Levite. She's wearing Levi jeans, and right. And we like Levites. So everybody, yay! Big round of applause. We're excited. They're good church people, and then come by but Linda, working for the church, man, it's places to go, people see, things to do, busyness, right? And so you're out of there. Terry comes by, and our priest Terry, we just you're now our priest, and again, wow, priests, yay, and applause. Thank you very much here, emoji. But you go back, Terry, you go way back here in like Deuteronomy. There's laws, there's rules about being a priest, and if you touch blood, it's like days of ritual washing and quarantine. We've been practicing quarantine for a while, some of us, but right. But you're out of there. You're out of there. And Lindsay comes by. Lindsay, are you there? Or are we just looking at, yeah, we're there. And Lindsay, you're in the far corner on my screen from Jim, but you are our Samaritan person, right? And everybody goes, oh, actually they go, right? And Lindsay, you are the one that gets this person up and bandages his wounds and, gets them all together. And you take him to, who's here? Douglas, are you there? I see your picture. We'll just put you in here, Douglas. You're listening, but you are our innkeeper, right? And you're our innkeeper. Well, you know the story. And you've heard it a bunch of times. And what I always ask people is, what do you hope people take away? You teach this story. You do this story. And I know you guys have probably done this a billion times, but I'm just going to give you a couple minutes. And I'm going to split you up in rooms, and hopefully all of you can jump in and have a short conversation. It's going to be a mini conversation. We'll come back and talk about this in a minute. But what are some things that you hope people remember? What did Jesus hope people remember? And then we'll go from there. I'm going to give you, let's see, sign automatically. There we go. We get like 3 people in a room, so you each get to say something shortly, and I'll bring you back. You know the drill on this. After about 2 minutes, I'll come back, which gives you 1 more minute, and you'll come spilling back in here. Here we go. And I'm just going to give them like 2 minutes here. So we'll just take that. Then we're going to do a short. Yay. And here they come back. Again, we don't have to kill this story because you've done it so many times, but give me a couple things real quick. What was something cool you heard? Just somebody give me a wave. What group? Otherwise, I'll just, yeah, Barbara, go.
You don't have to do it all alone. And
thank you.
Everyone is your neighbor.
Yeah. I love that. And peer ministry, the work that you do, there's a team of people, right? How cool. What else you notice? Jim, what'd you notice? So we beat you up.
I was in Barbara's group, and I very affected by Craig Ronnebaum, one of my mentors in companionship ministry. So he did touch on, there's an inn that he takes the person to. And so the need for charity is an opportunity for community. But at the same time, as Cherie said, or Sherry, I'm sorry, Cherie, I don't know how to pronounce your first name. It's sometimes you're it, other people are going to pass by, and sometimes you have to take responsibility. So it's both an individual responsibility and the community. And then I think the final point was the Samaritan was chosen for a reason. It's an out group for the respondent, for the Good Samaritan. And so it's not your title or your status, but it's like what you actually do in response to the neighbor that matters. So the hero of the story is someone who would have been in an out group for Jesus listeners, most likely.
Yeah, Jesus was really messing with people when he throws in the Samaritan, right? There's a lot of barriers being crossed in that story. I love that. And Douglas, you were our innkeeper. I actually had a kid one time that said, well, the innkeeper did all the work. And it was like,
no, our little small group, I like to feature. I want to feature Adrian was in our group, and she has a difficult ministry in Los Angeles with working with the homeless. And we just tied in the Good Samaritan story so much with what she's doing on a daily and weekly basis.
Yeah. So fantastic. Well, so many things that come out of this story. And it is the least likely. And there's these barriers that are being crossed and all kinds of things in the midst of that. A lot of times when I define what we do, there it is right there. I'll say really kind of 3 words in our work: relationships, all kinds of things about faith and life, connections, helping people connect. Skills is what we're best known for, giving people repeatable, doable, livable skills. And I think that's why people wanted us to connect with Pathways to Promise. I'm very proud of that. That's what we're most known for. Love being really the foundation that how do we love every neighbor, as ourselves, and skills and love. And I got to talk with Brian McLaren one day, having lunch, got to meet him, and was describing a little bit what we do. And so, but he started talking about the importance of love being the main thing for the church. He said, basically, he says, that's what we're trying to do, is help people love everybody. But he said, we sing about love, we talk about love, we do lessons on love. But he says, not very many people are giving actual skills. How do we give the practicals? How do we actually do? And I love the way he described it. I love the way he had these little illustrations. But he says, it's like going to a yoga class, right? And you go to a yoga class, and instead of doing exercises, we sit in straight rows, and we listen to someone talk about the benefits of yoga, and we sing about the downward dog, upward cobra, whatever, but he said that's too often what's happening in the church is there's a real need for people to give skills, just practical, doable, livable skills. That wouldn't it be cool if the church was really the learning lab, for love, and that we're turning around doing that. Well, that's what we start doing with the teens that we work with, and the adult leaders that we help learn to facilitate what we do. So skills. Let me just jump into one. You first meet somebody along the way. You're standing beside somebody talking, how do you even start the conversation? And we all probably have ways that we do that. And but a lot of people don't. A lot of times it starts with some kind of observation. You notice something that somebody's wearing, or the weather, or those kinds of things. And then we've been giving people just an acronym, and you're going to get to use this. You might even want to jot it down, right? Observation. Adrian, I can imagine your work a lot is about observations, things that you see going on with people, and and jumping in. But we start using the word wheat just for some of those first things we talk about. W, where are you from, right? H, I'll just do this. I could go to the screen, but hobbies, interests. What keeps you busy when you're not hanging around the church? Experiences, if you would. And that's kind of wide open. It might be family experiences or church experiences or whatever. And acquaintances. So often we find out where somebody lives or where they're at, and we start, go, oh, do you know so-and-so? We try to connect dots often. And, and then travel. Just, where have we been? And whoops, how did we get to, get here today? What, outside of St. Louis are getting snow today, so, some of those kind of things. And conversations start. Well, here's what's happened. I was working with a college group one time, and we introduced the wheat piece, and then we let people pair up and have a little conversation. And one of my guys comes back and says, "See that man over there?" He points to Jonathan, and I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I just weeded the guy." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Standing there getting donuts and coffee at the table. I got through all 5 of those things, and he didn't even know it." And so suddenly it becomes this verb to go out and weed people. One of my aha stories. I got to work with some kids that were skiing and snowboarding. And so at night we got to do something. We introduced wheat, and we said, tomorrow will be chairlift chat day. And what we meant by that is it was a busy resort, and they had a singles line because they needed to fill up every chair. You go faster, but you don't know who you're going to sit beside. And so we said, tomorrow you have to ride the singles line at least 3 times. And whoever you sit beside, you got to weed that person, right? And we'll come back and talk. Well, my first person I sat down with was a school teacher. I'm trained in education, so we talked education A. She was from Canada A, and she said A a lot more than I was used to, but it was a good conversation. Second person I rode up with, mid-20s. I've always refer to him as kind of the Mr. Party dude. He's wanting to tell me all about this strip bar he'd been at the night before, and we're chatting a little bit. So I thought, after a while, well, I should share who I am and what I do. It was a little awkward, but the third person was a businessman, and as he described, really fairly on in our conversation, he says, "Yeah, I'm here with my wife at the resort," but he says it's kind of a last-ditch effort to see if our marriage is going to work. Right? And suddenly it's like, whew, and what do? I mean, you listen, and we stood at the top and chatted, and obviously I wasn't going to be able to fix anything or solve anything, but we stood there for quite some time. But I remember leaving that conversation, giving kind of a blessing and starting out, and I go, oh my gosh, this wheat thing, it's not just a silly acronym. It's the Good Samaritan story. It's just stepping in and saying hi, right? And kind of seeing where it goes. And so I've always loved that, take it. Now, again, we don't have time to do this, and I don't want to take up all the time to do it, but we're going to do it just for a minute or two, probably 2 minutes. You get to do, I suppose this will be a mini wheat. Somewhere I got a box of mini wheats around, right? So where hobbies, experiences, acquaintances, travel. If you don't remember it, you can fake it. No points off if you do it backwards or if you miss one or two. But I'm going to pair you up for just a minute and just start that conversation. Kind of find out where people are from. So now we got 2 participants per room. Hopefully this will work out. If you end up by yourself, well, we'll watch. One of us will come join you. All right, here we go. Here we go. Couple people still talking as you come tumbling back in. So sorry. I said my job in life is to get people talking about really cool stuff and then make them stop. But I wanted to give you just kind of that the kind of that playful beginning, and skills in this work of giving people skills and giving them with kids. I say there's uses for these things as they learn these, these various pieces and listening and things along the way. I love at my particular church, one of the things our kids do is they do candle groups. They're really small groups, but they're like mini campfires, and they lead discussions about faith and life, and just are very good at just listening to other kids and inviting them to share kind of feelings and thoughts and where they're at. Some places do more of a mentoring kind of thing where they'll say, hey, I'm going to pair up some of my peer ministry youth with a younger youth, and it might be for a very short period of time, or it might be meeting for several times. Maybe it's a new member, and it's just like, somebody needs to interpret what we do at this church and get to know them. Sometimes it's because somebody is going through some life stress or some difficulties, and they're not a counselor, they're not there to fix things, but they are there just to be that extra friend and to support and listen and care about. So that's, all kinds of ways. Every church is different in how they use their peer ministry youth, some of them for programmatic things and some for just plugging in for short conversations, even with adults, kind of pairing up and working with it. I had a church a while back that said, everybody kind of leaves fairly quickly after our church service, and our youth they took peer ministry, and they said, we're going to hang out afterwards, and we're just going to weep people before they leave. Right? They're going to weep people. And so they did. They were engaging people in conversations, and it was so great. The pastor called me up and several weeks later, and she said, I was talking with a woman, a little bit older woman, and she said to me, she says, usually I leave pretty quick, but recently I've been trying to talk to all the kids. It was like, it was great. It wasn't you that was instigating it, but that's okay. She interpreted it that way. But so those in-house uses. And then I always say, if you have in-house uses, that only follows that you have outhouse uses, right? Outhouse ministry. And I laugh about that, but I'm probably most proud of the fact that our participants, our youth, start recognizing that these skills apply, right, to everyday stuff. Again, they know the kids on their team. They know the kids that they work with. They know kids in classes. And again, I tell you, you're the front lines of ministry. I'm not, because you know these people and you know what's going on, right? And I will ask my students, and you can play with me. You can imagine what you would say, or your students. And sometimes I'll just ask, if I'm speaking to a group, raise your hand. How many of us know somebody who's going through, and we can do this, how many of us know somebody who's going through changes of family, separation, divorce, and probably all of us, right? How many of us know somebody whose life is off kilter because of drug, alcohol kind of stuff, right? And you can imagine, I just go down the list, and all these hands raise, up, even middle school kids. I often then ask, how many of you have had a conversation with somebody that's been talking about suicide? And I would say high school, I would say, 80 to 100% kids raise their hands. And middle school, probably 40, 50% raise their hands, And we just think about all the stresses and all the things that are going through. And of course, then I always ask, how many of us wish we knew what to say or how to help? And we become that learning lab of love. How do we help you love others out there? I know as a youth minister, I talk with youth ministry people, they get so frustrated with all the things that keep kids away. Sports, drama, choir, whatever it is, band, they can't come because of all those things. And I get that. It is a frustration, but oftentimes I say, but what if that's where kids are supposed to be? what if we're there to cheer our kids on? And again, to just help them, as we talk with them, to say, how are you using those skills? What are some of the things that you're concerned about for your friends? How can we help you help them? And suddenly, church has left the building. It's become something that's lived, out there in their world, if you would. So peer ministry is giving skills, but then it's also giving, and every church is different. So we try to work with each church a little bit. How are you going to use these skills, these youth that have these skills in your congregation, in your setting? How are you going to use them, encourage them and help them in just everyday life, and what we're doing with that. Well, I'm going to jump over just because I set up a few slides. What I say? Well, our curriculum right now, we got several curriculums. I'll just mention them briefly. Our high school, and actually we use it for young adults also. We split them up into kind of 3 sections: listening leadership, helping leadership, welcoming leadership, and work through some of those. During trainings with groups, we always work through those first 4, and then some of the other pieces on the decision making or the helping leadership pieces. We do some work with middle school kids, and I love the titles of these. It's a 5-session piece, but it's a good introduction: making a friend, welcoming a friend, understanding a friend, helping, walking alongside. A lot of groups use those for retreats or short series. It was interesting that as we were doing this, of course, people were like, this needs to be for adults, right? And so all in relational ministry is that piece that we do there. Peerministry.org. Come and explore and take a further look at what we're doing. We also do a lot of resources, a lot of just faith life resources and mentoring and spirituality and anything that connects people with people. Here's what you need to know about those if you have a chance to get over there. Everything we do is PDF. And anything that you're looking at, you go, I wonder what that looks like. You just send me a note and I send it to you, because it's PDF, and you can preview it and go, let's see if that's a fit for what we're looking for or doing, and so that's I'll just share that about kind of what we do and where we're at. We're going to talk about maybe doing a training through Pathways of Promise and kind of experimenting, and we're talking about, like Jeremiah said, maybe maybe even working together at kind of the next version of peer ministry and how that would fit together and link together, and so to go from there. What questions? What questions do you have? And I'm going to invite you can just spill it out, or if you want to type in and chat and in the room, we can do that. But what thoughts or questions or observations kind of come to mind?
I have one. I'm in Georgia.
Hi.
I work with college, high school, and middle school students and do a lot of presentations around mental health. And a topic that comes up a lot is, and something we're trying to develop in Georgia, is how do you become, like we tell students to find their trusted adult to speak with if they're contemplating, if they have suicidal ideation or things like that. But now we're trying to decide who are those trusted adults. And I at one time had been a trusted adult as a school teacher, a high school teacher, and was unsure of the best things I should say to that young person to keep them safe and that type. I mean, I know all of the rules of the suicide, the training, but as a person that a young person comes to, then the next step is to know what types of things safely do you say to them? And so that's what we're looking at here, is developing a program about becoming a safe, becoming that trusted adult. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, thanks, Faye. Yeah, we obviously have to talk about some of those pieces, and the trusted adult and knowledgeable adult, because I've had way too many kids along the way that said, well, I went and talked to my parent, and parents are good normally, but there are some that say, well, don't get involved in that. I don't want you to be involved. And so yeah, don't ask those questions. And that's one of the issues we've had sometimes with peer ministry is people, it's like, well, I don't want my kids talking about those kinds of topics with others. And it's like, but they already are, right? And so to go with that. One of the things I've learned is and thank you. I love it that you're kind of training in some adults and connecting. One of the things I've learned about kids is they really don't care about titles. They don't care if somebody has doctor or psychologist or what. They just want to know they want to go to somebody they know. So I like your words, trusted adult. So they want to be able to go to Faye because I know her, and so there's times it's like, okay, we need to just meet with the school counselor, and just sit and tell our school counselor what we're doing at our church and what's going on, and just have a conversation so that they know, a little bit more personally, those kind of folks. And Faye, bless you, because sometimes it's sometimes people make the right connections, and sometimes they get turned away. And I did have a girl. I was doing Zoom work with North Dakota kids in a small town, and a girl says, "Yeah," she says, "I'm trying to keep 3 of my friends alive." And it was like, well. And so we chatted a little bit, and she had even called the suicide hotline one night for one of them. And she said, basically, they told me, "You're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing," and didn't give her the help that she needed. She said, "I hung up and called a teacher that I knew." And I said, "Thank you. Sometimes you have to be able to go, I need to go to the next innkeeper." We call them innkeepers, right? Because that's so cool. They do all the work, and so sometimes our job is to find those innkeepers. I don't know, but yeah, that's helpful. But others, what comes to mind? Helpful? Do you envision this like in your ministries? Can you imagine helping kids? Give me a wave there, or thumbs up, or possibilities. So some good nods. Yeah. I love it that teens start to see themselves as being very, very important. See you, Douglas, in that they're not just being taught and being that they are integral to the importance of their church. Douglas, go.
I'm just curious if you have an end result of what you're trying to do with your peer ministry. Do you have something that you're trying to get the youth to a certain point, wherever that is? Or is this just a tool to help them connect with each other, or connect with an adult, connect with some sort of spiritual leadership? What is the path, and is there an end result?
Yeah. Thanks, Douglas. I certainly want kids to connect the fact that what they often do is about their faith, and these things are about God. Just some of the things that they do, every day. I don't expect my kids to be counselors or fixers or solvers. I think it's they're much more on the end of prevention than they are on the solving of things. They are more likely to help people find the innkeepers. But I want them to have some skills, like I said, that can be used in the church and recognize outside the church. I'm working with a group one time, and I'm asking them, how are you using these skills just in everyday life? And they're kind of quiet, so I kept pushing a little bit. And one girl finally says, well, she says, I don't know if this counts. And I said, well, tell me. And she goes, well, Friday night I went out with a friend, and her parents are split up. I think they're getting a divorce. I hadn't seen her for a while. I just thought it would be good to go and spend some time with her. I was like, yeah, you know, that's, I mean, that's it. And we started talking about that. And then like all the participants started having like, well, there's this kid in my math class that nobody talks to, but I always try to talk to him. And they all had little things. My aha after that experience, so it hit me so hard, was like, oh my gosh, we have people doing ministry all the time. We've just forgotten to tell them it counts. They had never drawn the lines between just those caring, listening, helping skills always to their faith. And so to help them. So end results, it's a little bit soft maybe, but it is that, I want kids recognizing their faith in that. We do in all sessions, we do biblical stories, we do prayers, we do, some spiritual practice pieces that kind of tie it into their faith, but kind of fun, kind of playful, ways. Much more fun in person than Zoom, but we'll survive on Zoom too. Right, Adrian, I love your laugh. Thank you. So, yeah. Other thoughts, other wonderings.
Hi, this is Adrian. I'm very active in my church now that I am retired from the Department of Mental Health. But there is a neighboring church that has a new pastor, and he happens to be somebody I knew from another life. And so he wants me to help his new parish with certain things. And I really have been thinking, do I duplicate what I have been doing at the Department of Mental Health, because I've been working with different churches at that time, or do I do something new? But listening to you, Lyle, just gave me a new tool, and I feel that they have an elementary school that's 1 through 8, and they have a big parish. They're wealthy parish, and they have also there is suicide among thoughts of suicide and acts of suicide within the community, not just within the parish. And there's also and so I was thinking, maybe there is something different. And you just gave me an idea that, and I am curious I'd like to know more about your curriculum. I'd like to adapt some of what you're saying, because that's basic. For me, it is basic. I like the idea that you said, let the church be the learning lab of love. I mean, for me, that rings a bell, and that is what I see the church should be. And that is what is missing in many of our churches. And so it would be nice to do it, and I would be interested in looking at your program, what you do, the basics, and then talk it to my new pastor and say, this is a new thing that we can do, and work with the children, because they are our future. And, you are talking about the middle, the statistics of suicide, 40% in middle school. And that is something that we can, maybe we can work with, this new parish. And so that's where my thinking is right now. And I have the blessings right now of the pastor. So that's and that's already a big thing, because he is giving me an open door, So,
well,
yeah.
Keep talking with Jeremiah too, because if we do a training, I think it could be open to
Jeremiah and I have known each other for years, and so with Jim, I've been with Pathways to Promise for I don't know how many years. So,
what I got kicked out. I just got back in. But one of the things, and then I thought, well, maybe you're not supposed to say anything, and you got kicked out. But
and when you come in, it's when I'm saying, and that's the most important thing I'm going to say all day, right?
Right. But one of the things that I see that amazes me about this is that they're talking.
Yeah.
They're talking because this right here, this little gadget right here keeps them from talking. And the stories that you keep relating is that they're talking. They're talking to the trusted adults. They're talking to people, and they're talking to each other. They're talking. And that is the one thing that I see with our kids is they don't talk to us. They don't talk to each other. They will be sitting in a room with each other and text each other and not talk to each other at the dinner table, in a restaurant, in wherever. They're texting instead of talking. So if people are implementing this program and they are talking to each other, this is beneficial.
Yeah, and as the experience of a training, it starts out with wheat. Well, that's kind of fun, getting to know somebody, and then you just listen and you start getting to know people a little deeper, and eventually you're talking about kind of
faith,
heart stories. And,
yeah,
and so it gets pretty real sometimes, pretty fast. But yeah, I was talking to a teacher yesterday. I had coffee with her, and she said it's like freshman kids. And they're discovering in their schools after pandemic and after not being, she says it's like they're 2 years behind just in their social abilities right now. And so, yeah, I keep being reaffirmed that it's something that's, relationships is not a fad. It's not going away. Jeremiah and I our organizations have we have a lot of good stuff ahead of us, I think. And it's needed stuff. So thanks.
Well, I want to thank all of you all for joining us for this special edition of this Engage Learn Network Leadership Forum. This is what it's all about with Pathways, connecting mental health, faith, and culture. And so we are so excited you joined us for this conversation. We will send out an email to all of you all. If you are interested, we ask that you just reach back and say, yep, I'm interested. And we'll make some linkage. And because our youth are so very important. And it's not just a fancy saying that we say when we say the children are our future. They are our now. They are our now. If you don't equip them now, you might not have a future. So we have to do the equipping now, so that we have a solid, strong future. And, for me, Lyle just points out that we have youth out there that are doing good things. And I think it's so important that we highlight those stories of youth that are doing those positive things versus the ones that we see so much in the media. So we need to talk about when our youth are doing positive things and making a difference in their community. So we will take this recording. We'll have it available on our website as a resource. And we look forward to talking to you again, hopefully in April, about where we have decided to move forward with this partnership.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting me mess with you a little bit today. And me too.
And as you can see, Lyle, a lot of
okay, I'll hang out for a couple. Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Nobody told you to do this. Nobody.
All right. I'll let you quit the recording. I'll hang out for just a minute and